What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Professor Cygnus, and we are getting ready for another game of Clue for the Sega Genesis. Anybody that hasn't seen this before, I'll go through some of the ways in which things work, the ways in which they're different maybe from the board game that you're familiar with playing or not familiar with playing, depending. A couple of just notes about the channel and the video here. Right above my head, you'll see a clue sheet. That clue sheet is going to have all the information that you need to play along. It's going to show you all the notes that we take as we're playing about the clues that the game gives us. And then on the screen next to me, right over there, is where you're going to see the actual gameplay. We're going to be playing as Professor Plum as per usual. If you're not familiar with the Sega version of the game, there are some differences between this and the board game that you might be more used to. The key differences is the clues are given instead of in terms of our cards, are given in terms of presenting scenarios. So it kind of feels like we are a detective and we're getting everybody's stories together, and we put together the scenarios that make sense, and then our cards are what differentiates between what is true and what is just a potential scenario that goes along with it. So our cards, we've got rope, we've got wrench, and we've got haul. So we can go ahead and mark those off, because just like in the board game, anything that we have as a card are incorrect answers. So rope, wrench, and haul are all eliminations for us. So rope, wrench, haul, just wanted to make sure that I had all the right things. And so then we're going to go ahead and get into the game from there. It proceeds just like a normal game. You're going to see characters roll as we go around the board. First turn, not much happens, as everybody's just kind of getting their initial rolls in. And then usually on the second turn, we're going to start seeing people get into rooms, and it'll move on from there. So we're the last to move as Professor Plum. Nothing really special to take note of in terms of our cards. Nothing's really going to affect us right off of the bat. The study, the first room that we would likely make it into, not one of our cards. The kitchen, the room that is a secret passage away from that room that we're initially going to start in, not one of our cards. The only thing that we can avoid going to is the hall. Although everything we've just said is now for naught, as we have been guessed into the lounge. So just like in the traditional board game, when your character is guessed, you get pulled into that specific room. So the wrench was not in the lounge. So we'll go back to the card here, go down to the lounge portion, and we can scratch off wrench as something that is not one of the possibilities. And as the game goes on, we're just going to kind of take our time going through all those things, marking all those different things off, and sort of keeping track of those things. For the first, I'll say 5 rounds or so, there's not going to be a lot of information to guess. But then as the game proceeds, something kind of interesting happens, is there starts to be a mix between these clues that you see on the top half of our clue sheet, which talks about relationships between suspects and weapons. As we get the clue that Colonel Mustard did not have the wrench, we can mark that off on our sheet. So those relationships on the top half between suspects and weapons are going to come into play, and also making eliminations down on the bottom, which is relationships between the suspects, the weapons, and the rooms that they may or may not be located in. So as we make eliminations on the top, they also give us inferences that we can make on the bottom, and vice versa. So it requires a little more detention and deduction by us as detectives in order to narrow those things down. So, Miss Scarlet did not have the candlestick. So we go to Scarlet here, mark off the candlestick, and go along. So it's our turn. We can either stay in the lounge, or we can go to the conservatory. It really makes no difference to us. It's early in the game, no really limitations on what we guess. We're going to go ahead and stay in the lounge. We're going to guess that it was Colonel Mustard with the candlestick. I tend to take the approach of avoiding characters and weapons that we have eliminated, and I like guessing about rooms that we have eliminated. But that room was the hall. We've kind of been pushed away from that area, so that's going to be harder for us to do. So Colonel Mustard was not in the lounge, so we can go ahead and scratch Colonel Mustard off in the lounge. So what I mean by avoid asking questions about the characters or weapons that we have eliminated is that by virtue of us knowing both rope and wrench are false, all we need to do to know that Mr. Green is not the murderer, for example, is to find out that Mr. Green doesn't have the candlestick, knife, lead pipe, and revolver. We eliminate those 4 things, we've now eliminated Mr. Green. And so that gives us a little advantage in terms of some of our deduction. So here we go. Mr. Green was not in the lounge. So we can go ahead and scratch Green off and get into the next clue here. So that ends Miss Scarlet's turn. Let's see here. Mr. Colonel Mustard there gets a little roll in, doesn't really get much of anywhere though with it. Mrs. White though makes her way across into the conservatory. Let's see what her guess is going to be. Okay, Mr. Green did not have the lead pipe, so we go to Green, we cross off lead pipe, and so then that means now there's 3 things we have to eliminate in order to eliminate Mr. Green as one of our suspects. Another guess in the conservatory here, it's Mustard with the revolver. Okay. We're going to get another one of our little top-end clues here. A lot of top clues to start off the game, which can be helpful in terms of making some deductions about rooms, because it starts to limit where characters could potentially be murderers, not necessarily where they are. So Colonel Mustard did not have the revolver. We'll go ahead and mark that clue up there and move on. Mr. Green, it's their turn, and it goes over to Mrs. Peacock. So Mrs. Peacock is the last person for us. She takes a roll, blocks a door, and then we can go ahead and go to the conservatory ourselves. Conservatory is completely wide open, so as long as it doesn't contradict a piece of information on the top, anything that we guess is going to be useful. We're going to go ahead and guess Mrs. Peacock because we don't want this to get all clogged up down here, because the computers making guesses are going to be helpful for us too. So we're going to say Mrs. Peacock, and we're going to say knife, because no one has said anything, or at least gotten any clues about the knife yet. Well, we changed that. The knife was not in the conservatory, so that gets marked on the bottom part of the sheet, and we just keep it on move. Let's see here, and end our turn, because there's nothing more that we need to do. Colonel Mustard's turn. And he's going to guess us with the rope in the conservatory. So let's see what comes of that, if anything. And just another deduction here at the top. Plum did not have the rope. Now, that's kind of one of the places where I do occasionally deviate with my thought process of avoiding these eliminated weapons. Is sometimes I'll ask about us, the character we're playing as, in relation to those eliminated weapons. because I would like to eliminate us from suspicion as early as possible. And the reason I like to eliminate us from suspicion, Mrs. Peacock did not have the revolver, I'll mark that. The reason I like to eliminate us from suspicion is that at the end of the game, frequently you have a potential murder scenario or two, and players are kind of wandering around the halls here, going from room to room, trying to find out where those suspects are, where those scenarios present themselves. And so by eliminating ourselves earlier on, that means that we are able to avoid ourselves from getting kind of pulled around, which can be a big negative. So let's see, we've got Miss Scarlet was not in the ballroom, so we can go ahead and scratch that off. Scarlet ballroom. Okay. Mrs. Peacock in the ballroom is going to make a guess there because she's been dragged there. So that's one of the early game advantages of being dragged around, is you get to make a guess wherever you are, and all the information that we can gather is usually useful throughout the early portion of the game. So the rope, another elimination we can make in the ballroom. So good. Scratch it off our list. So it's our turn. We're going to go to the lounge just because we want to keep going back and forth until we get some things narrowed down between these two rooms. But we're going to leave before we get them fully eliminated. So we've got Green and Mustard eliminated in the lounge. We're going to go ahead and guess about Mrs. Peacock again, and we'll say it was her. Let's use the knife again because we don't have any deductions made about the knife on the top portion of the screen or in the lounge. Mrs. Peacock was not in the lounge, so we've eliminated another character from the lounge. So now there's only 3 possible murderers left for the lounge: Plum, Scarlet, and White. And we know that even outside of our clue that it wasn't the wrench, we know the wrench was not in the lounge. So that's another little elimination that we have as far as things go in the lounge. So we've gotten pulled to the ballroom. They've guessed it was us. The wrench, however, not in the ballroom, is the clue we get. So go ahead, scratch that off, keep it moving. Colonel Mustard's turn now. Colonel Mustard takes a roll. Makes it to the ballroom with his roll. Guesses White Revolver Ballroom. The revolver was not. So now we're just down to 3 potential weapons in the ballroom: candlestick, knife, and lead pipe. However, all of those weapons are possible murder weapons as far as we know at this point. None of them are things that, based on the information we have, we're able to eliminate. So, ooh, another top clue here. So Green did not have the revolver. Mark that off here. So that has Green now down to just 2 weapons that he could have possibly used if he's the murderer. So if Green is the murderer, it was with either the candlestick or the knife. Lead pipe and revolver are eliminated because of clues the game has given us. Rope and wrench are eliminated by virtue of them being cards that we were dealt at the beginning of the game. Mrs. Peacock did not have the wrench. Okay. Scratch that off. I think I'm going to guess about ourselves and the wrench next time I'm given an opportunity. We're in the ballroom right now, so we can't guess about it there because that would be nonsense. Mustard Rope Conservatory is the next guess. Colonel Mustard. was not in the conservatory is our elimination. So we'll go ahead and make that. And then it's our turn now. So we're going to make a guess here in the ballroom. Since we were pulled there, might as well take advantage of the opportunity here. On our clue sheet, we do have some eliminations in ballroom. Revolver, rope, wrench, all off the list. So we don't have anything about Mrs. White yet, so let's guess her. So we're going to say it was Mrs. White, and we continue to not have much about knife, so we will say knife. Okay, Mrs. White did not have the knife. So we can make that elimination, and then we will move on to the next player's turn. Ms. Scarlet next to go. Rolls and she blocks the door. Lovely. Mustard is going to stay in the conservatory for a guess. He's going to pull Ms. White back over there and say that she did it with the revolver. Okay. Can scratch revolver off in the conservatory then. It's another elimination for us. Mr. Green next, but he's pretty blocked in there. But now he's going to block the billiard room also. So a couple of blocked doors down here on the bottom portion of the board makes it a little tricky here for everybody. Scarlet Lead Pipe Lounge is the next guess. Scarlet was not in the lounge, so we can eliminate that. Oops, that's an error. Let me undo that. Scarlet was not in the library. So lounge is now limited to just Professor Plum or Mrs. White is the murderers. So we're going to kind of want to stay away from learning too much more about the lounge. So we're going to head towards the billiard. The reason I don't want to learn too much about the lounge is because there is a degree to which you need to make sure that the killer is accused during your turn in order to win the game. And we were trying to win the game. So we're going to trust our ability to make inferences about things that are missing better than our opponents. And so therefore, Professor Plum did not have the knife, so we can X that off. But by virtue of that, we're going to want to make sure that there are some things that are left up to chance and left unknown, but we can make assumptions about. So as we eliminate places and possibilities, we're going to also leave some minimal possibility left, so that later on, once we have established relationships between weapons or people and such like that, that it'll leave a limited number of unexplored possibilities left that we can then go back and try to pull the correct answer. So Candlestick scratched out of ballroom there. We will go ahead and move on. Colonel Mustard finishes their turn. White is kind of in no man's land here. Is probably going to end up back in the ballroom. No, she heads towards the library. Interesting. Green could have gone into the billiard room, but instead walks back towards the ballroom. Peacock makes a guess in the ballroom. Says it was White with the lead pipe. Now, lead pipe, one of only 2 weapons left as possible murder weapons in the ballroom. But Mrs. White, did not have the lead pipe. Okay, so is there anything that we know about the top portion of this that's interesting yet? And the answer is kind of no. We want to go to the conservatory, though. We're pretty happy with how narrowed down the lounge is. The conservatory, however, is not particularly narrowed down. Let's ask about Mrs. Peacock. And let's say she did it with the lead pipe. Because that way we're kind of keeping everything narrowing slightly. We don't want to over narrow one character or one weapon, because then it makes it a little easier on our opponents. Mrs. Peacock was not in the conservatory, so we scratch her out. So that leaves 4 murderers and 4 murder weapons left for the conservatory. But again, we're kind of at the point where we want to not guess quite so much in the lounge. It would have been nice to get pulled to the dining room because we know very little about that up there. Since we're wanting to kind of avoid the lounge at this point, it makes it more difficult for us to get there. Peacock, not in the dining room. Go ahead and scratch that out. We were already in the conservatory, but they're guessing about us there. What do they say we did? They say we wrenched somebody there. Plum was not in the conservatory, so we can go ahead ourselves from the room. And so that leaves now just green, scarlet, and white as possible ne'er-do-wells in the conservatory. So that room's pretty nice and narrowed down also. We would like maybe one more guess there. But again, by virtue of ourselves kind of wanting to avoid the lounge, it limits our ability to do that. Lead pipe was not in the ballroom. Okay. And we really don't have any interest in going to the ballroom, because since we're down to just one item there, anything that we guess would really have the potential of negating the ballroom completely, which we would like to leave out in the open because we want to have a more narrowed down understanding of things than our opponents. And we give them too obvious a clue, sometimes it provides them with too obvious an answer. Okay, Peacock, not in the ballroom, so we'll scratch her out. Mrs. Peacock's turn now. She rolls. She could have made the billiard room, but instead goes to the conservatory and guesses Miss Scarlet with the lead pipe. Okay. Going to tell us here Miss Scarlet did not have the lead pipe, so we can scratch that off of our listing here. Now it's our turn. And we're in kind of an awkward spot here because we don't really want to be in the lounge. We are okay with being in the conservatory. We don't want to be in the ballroom. So we are going to roll and hope we make it to the billiard room. It's probably going to take us 2 turns to get there. So there is exactly what I was about to talk about. There's a possibility that we get pulled to a room for a guess before we get there. And Miss Scarlet has almost instantly obliged. So that's going to be kind of our setup there. Nice thing is it makes it easier for us to get back to the conservatory as we had asked about. Plum was not in the lounge. Well, we are now. So there's only one possible murderer now left for the lounge. That's Mrs. White. We can't fully eliminate the lounge, though, because we don't have enough clues about the possible murder weapons or weapon that she could or couldn't have. Still some possibilities there. Peacock goes to the lounge and says, "It's white, the candlestick. This is an open possibility." But Mrs. White did not have the candlestick. So now based on all of the things that we have gathered here, both the information from our cards and the information that has been gleaned via playing the game, there are only a few options here left for us. So we don't, again, want to give that to any of our opponents. So we're going to take the secret passage. But, and what are we going to guess? What are we going to guess? We might be able to find out useful information here remotely. So let's ask Conservatory. White is still available. Revolver's not though. So let's say it's pretty limited here. Green. Scarlet. No. Mustard, no. White. Candlestick. Mustard. Can't be here. Green candlestick, we'll say. Candlestick was not in the conservatory. So the only possible murder weapon now left in the conservatory is the lead pipe. The rope and the wrench could still be there, but because of our cards, they are eliminated. So who could use the lead pipe? Mr. Green's could still be in the conservatory. We have eliminated him as a lead pipe user. Scarlet. She could be there, but she's eliminated as a lead pipe user. White. Also eliminated as a lead pipe user. Therefore, based on the information we know, we have now eliminated the conservatory. Green did not have the wrench. Perfect. So that's another possibility there off our list. And yeah, so the reason we were able to eliminate this is all of our murder suspects left, green, scarlet, and white, are eliminated as having the lead pipe. And the only other weapons that could be there other than the lead pipe are the rope and the wrench, which were eliminated by virtue of our cards. So that lets us kind of completely make a scenario here that leaves everything else eliminated. White, not in the lounge. Okay, and so now we're completely done with this back and forth section here because the lounge is off the list too. So the awkwardness here. So knife, let's see, green could have it. Mustard could have it. Plum could not have it. White could not have it. So white and green, or excuse me, green and mustard are still possible murderers in the ballroom, but they're the only two left because the knife is the only weapon that can be there. Scarlet was not in the conservatory. Scratch her off. So ballroom is under a severe pressure. The knife is the only possible murder weapon left based on our eliminations from the clues the game has given us. And then based on other deductions we've been able to make, green and mustard are the only possible murder suspects that could be there and could use the knife. Dining room. Knife was not in the dining room. There's a lot that's possible still in the dining room. However, we're nowhere near there, nor do we really want to get anywhere near there. We've rolled a 6, so that's going to put us right outside the billiard room. Let's not get pulled to the dining room, please, because I would like to go to the billiard room, and I'd like to be able to bring another player or two over there with us so we can start narrowing things down. The lead pipe was not in the dining room, so that's another scratch off there for us. Let's see here. So Scarlet, Mustard can make a guess in the dining room here. It says green. Beautiful. So it's looking, so far so good is working for us to not get pulled to the dining room. Green did not have the rope. Well, Didn't really care to know that, but that's fine. So Mr. Green's down to 2 weapons now, knife and candlestick. Both possibilities, though, based on the information and cards that we have so far. So nothing too eliminating there. Comes the next guess. Scarlet Rope Dining Room. Scarlet was not in the dining room. Scratch her off the list. So candlestick and revolver are the only 2 weapons that could be there that are of concern to us. People could still use the candlestick. Revolver's under a fair bit of pressure. Plum is the only one that could have used it there. Or white. Okay. So we're in the billiard. Didn't matter what we rolled, we were going to get there. Wrench is free. Actually, everything's free and clear in billiard room. I wanted to ask about us, but I kind of want to get somebody else down. Let's say Scarlet. Let's say knife. It's going to tell us that she didn't have them. So we know at minimum now we are going to be able to eliminate one of scarlet or white here with just one more piece of information. And the reason I know that is because only one person can have a weapon. And there's only one useful weapon, one weapon that is still a murder possibility left for us based on the cards we have for both scarlet and white, and that's the revolver. So either they're both eliminated by Plum or no one having the revolver. Or one of them is going to have the revolver and then the other is going to be left without one of the potential murder weapons. Mustard Rope Lounge. The rope is the only thing that would be nice to know about here. The rope was not in the lounge. We kind of prefer it that way because we would like someone to have the rope so we can eliminate a person, a weapon, or a person and a room by virtue of our weapon card. Peacock Rolls. This is about mustard with candlestick. Yeah, that's one of the limited possibilities here left. We'd like him to not have it. Ooh, he does have it. Very interesting. Okay. Did have the candle. So we can ease off. We can also mark candlestick off from every other person. Okay. So now it's our turn. Roll, head towards the lot. Not sure I understand that guess, but okay. Rope was not in the dining room. So we're pretty narrow there. Oh, let's anywhere candlestick is marked off. Can also mark off mustard. Serve mustard. Anywhere mustard is marked off. So mark off the candlestick. And there's our first complete scenario. So we have dining room, mustard, add the candlestick in the dining room. There's nothing we can do to disprove this, so we have to hope it either gets back to us or it's incorrect. It's not going to get back to us, so now we need to hope it's incorrect because Peacock is going to do an interrogation. Here we go. Let's see. And that's the correct answer. That's unfortunate. Yeah, just kind of got bad luck there. Went from having no complete scenarios to a complete answer there pretty quickly. Yeah, it's just kind of bad luck. So we're going to get to see the whole scenario play out now. The dishes were set in tidy rows across the dining room table. Colonel Mustard carefully cleaned his monocle. He found the candlestick. Found the situation quite intolerable. So he and so bad luck for us there. You know, we went from, as I said, kind of having no complete answers to a full complete answer in pretty short order. And it just never made it back to us. So I don't know really if there's any more that we could do there. It's just kind of how that cookie crumbles sometimes. But thanks for joining us. And appreciate y'all hanging out with us and watching us play a game.